on Facebook. So, hi everybody. Welcome to Intentional Academy Live. This is our first episode. I'm Tony Farrar. I've got Nicole and Justin here with me, and our goal is to help you squeeze every last drop of value out of your education. We're going to show you how to win through the power of intentional learning. No matter where it is that you are in life, our goal is to help you manage your time, get control of your money, and launch that dream career. One of the ways that we're going to try and do that is through this show, which is going to be broadcast in a number of ways, including as a live stream. We're going to drop this on YouTube, and it's going to show up as a podcast as we learn the logistics of doing that. So that's a lot at once, but let me just tell you what we're going to do today. Today's episode is all about answering some questions. What's the Intentional Academy? Who are we, the people on this team that are creating it? What exactly is going to happen in this show? And then we're going to wrap up by talking a little bit about kind of a value of the day, and finally answer a question or two that we've gotten from the community that has engaged here with the Intentional Academy. So let's get started. The first thing I think that we can do is tell you the story of the Intentional Academy in a nutshell. I think the words Intentional Academy first showed up in my brain maybe about a year ago now. So slightly longer than a year ago, we started blogging and talking about these different areas of life that I had previously struggled with, and now I'm not. And as that progressed, that's where this language came from. And we launched our first really big Intentional Academy push in April, where we started offering this free ebook to help college students decrease their stress and increase their productivity and feel like they were getting more done. Where this all started, though, is actually way back in grad school for me. So I'm a professor at a university, and my journey to get there was very fraught with challenge, especially in the areas of time and of money and of just planning out my life. Every decision felt huge. Everything was a challenge. And in each of these areas, I found a point in my life where I felt really low, realized something had to change. And like any good geek would, I went and learned as much as I possibly could and started implementing things. And what I realized is that there is a massive amount of material out there for people who want to figure out how to do these things: time, money, career. There are so many books, so many podcasts, online seminars, everything that you can possibly imagine. It's all already out there. The problem is none of it has been adapted to the unique challenges that college students face and that young professionals, recent graduates, that group faces. You know, when you look at a time management book and it talks about establishing priorities and working with your boss to make sure that you have an even workload, well, that doesn't reflect reality for a college student. College students don't get to tell one professor, well, I'm just going to deprioritize that task this week and start picking up this one. But don't worry, I'll get to this other one as we get back from it. That's not a thing. And so what I realized was that all of these books on time management, which is where this all started for me, they had great basic ideas, little nuggets, but they had to be adapted to work for the needs of a college student. It didn't take much longer for the same thing to happen with money. To be honest, this really didn't become a thing until after I graduated. But it's the old saying, right? If I knew then what I know now. And so our mission is to help you know that now instead of later. When I finally graduated,
it felt like we.
Yeah, right. Felt like a team effort. When I finally graduated and that first student loan payment showed up, by the time you added cars and student loans and credit cards and all the things that we put together, our monthly minimum payment was $1,400. And that'll take your breath out just like jumping in cold water. Like the first time I ever got a real paycheck in my life, and all of it was gone. And so that was when we decided to start getting really smart about money, and got on a plan. Our goal was to pay off all of these loans, student loans included, all of it, about $95,000 total, in as close to 2 years as we could hit. So we're at like 26 months now, and we have just a few to go before we're done. And so yeah. So we can talk to you about, the journey that we've been through there as well. And once again, the ways that we can take what we've experienced, and I've already started to help students that I work with win in those areas as well. But I think maybe the biggest one is to realize that, we went to school for a reason. There's a thing that we're passionate about, and we're hoping that we can turn that field of study into some sort of a career that will, bring us fulfillment and, of course, make us some money so that we can do the other things in life. And so when I look at these topics for a college student, what I really see is that the time and the money thing are kind of prereqs to get your head on straight so that you can make really awesome decisions about your career and actually end up where you want to go. The statistic that was, the feather in the cap that the universities like to tout is that right now we have around a 70% graduation rate. If you look at all the students who go to college, about 70% of them actually graduate with a degree, which is pretty great. Actually, that's completely wrong.
Just random statistics that are incorrect.
Yeah, maybe you should write these things down. That was unintentional. The part that is true is that 70% of college graduates have jobs. That's what I meant to say. So rewind, edit, delete, whatever. The point here
Control
is,
Z.
yeah, thank you, or Apple Z, since we are Mac. Thing to remember here is just that 70%, that's the number that colleges like to brag about when they convince you to do things like borrow a bunch of money to go there. 70% of people are employed 6 months after graduation. That's the stat. The part that nobody likes to admit is that 50% of those people are either underemployed or completely misemployed. And what I mean by that is that they're either working in a job that didn't require that degree in the first place, or they're working in a job that maybe it required a degree, but it has nothing to do with what they studied. 50%. So we've got this great stat. Everybody's getting jobs. The problem is none of them are related to, half of them aren't related to the things that they studied. And so when you start pulling at this, what I discovered is just how deep the time and money issue really runs. 6 months after graduation, there's an interesting reason that that's the number that everybody has a job at, right? Because that's when your first loan payment shows up. Mm-hmm. That's when you start to get so scared that you start expanding that search out of the realm of things that relate to what you were actually after. And you find yourself saying yes to anything that pays. And if only you had been on top of things with the money, if you'd had peace. I'm not saying that you have to be rich to go to college. What I'm saying is just that you have a plan. Know what that plan is with your money. If you give yourself the time, even when you feel overwhelmed, to do a thorough and thoughtful job search, right, then this career part starts to come unlocked. Anyways, that's a lot at once for you, so I'm not going to go too far in this, other than to say these are the topics that this show, the Intentional Academy was founded on, is figuring out how to help students stop playing defense, stop feeling overwhelmed, stop constantly feeling just bombarded, and move to a place where they can actually start to win and start to feel that satisfaction, start to enjoy the college experience instead of letting it be one more thing to grind out and check off the list. So I'm not sure how to say what is the Intentional Academy
intentionally
in a sentence, but maybe that's it. Live intentionally, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so the next part of this show that we wanted to get to was introducing ourselves. I'll go first. Okay, I'm Tony Farrar, currently a college professor. I teach engineering, and in my spare time, I try to help, particularly in that college, teach the other half of the brain, things like time management, professional skills, all the things that really set you apart when you graduate on top of your academic achievement. My own story is that I went to Virginia Tech. I studied there for a few years, and I graduated there in 2008, 11, and 15. Bachelor's, master's, PhD, all in mechanical engineering. Had some great opportunities along the way to get plugged in with the teaching and learning folks there. One thing led to another. That became the dream of professor, and now that I'm there, I can't imagine doing anything else. So much so that here I am trying to teach in my spare time, right? And so, apart from that, and apart from the long version of the story, where these are areas of my life that I struggled with and then decided to get smart, which I guess kind of qualifies me to talk about it, I can just tell you this. There is a wonderful line that forms outside my door during my office hours. Here, at my past job, and even at the position that I held before that, when I was still just a grad student, of people asking me how to deal with these types of questions. And as I was going through this, a very wise person said, anytime somebody asks me the same question 3 times, I create a product. And so that's kind of the thing that one day just said, oh my goodness, this could be important to somebody beyond just the person that I'm looking at one-on-one right now. Mm-hmm. And that's where all of this started to grow. What I've realized, though, is that message, these ideas, are big. There's a lot to digest. There's a lot of different ways to communicate them. And every relationship has 2 people in it. There's the wow person, and there's the how person. And I need people in my life to help ground all these fuzzy ideas in some flavor of reality. And so the Intentional Academy team has grown slightly in the last several months, and now we're really starting to form a team that has distinct roles and is working together. We can't go so far yet as to like have job titles. I don't think we're there.
Not quite.
But I don't know which of you would like to go first, but here we are at your chance to tell the world a little bit about yourselves. So I'm going to turn it over to Justin and Nicole and let them fight this out.
Well, ladies first.
Oh, thanks, Justin. Well, I'm Nicole Farrar. No coincidence of the same last name. This is my husband, Tony. We have an adorable son, Luke, so I am currently a stay-at-home mom of 1. And before that, my background story is that I also went to Virginia Tech. I got a degree in communications, so hopefully I'm clear whilst communicating with you. My degree isn't a waste. But I got into it initially to do public relations and marketing, and like that 50% of people, I graduated grasping for anything that was even close to my field that I studied in. I ended up doing a sort of marketing customer service job. Did that for a while Tony was graduating. And jumped from that to being a nanny, actually. I really enjoy children and loved that job. And then bounced from that when we moved to property management. So my career has just been up and down, all different places. That's kind of my personality too, though. I'm not passionate in one particular thing like Tony. Tony just loves to teach, obviously. He does it all the time. I actually have to stop him from doing it to me at home. I have to be like, teacher voice, put that away. Right. But I love everything. I always have loved everything, and that's been a unique perspective for me on trying to focus. I know that a lot of students have trouble focusing, and that was definitely a challenge for me and stuff we can discuss in the future. But I don't believe anyone's career is really that stagnant, so everybody kind of changes, and I've been blessed to be able to experience different things and different people, and currently in love with my job of staying home with my son. So that has its own set of challenges. I'm sure other parents can relate, but that's my basic background. Justin, you're up.
Hi, my name is Justin Thomas. I am one of those weird guys where I am actually employed by the federal government doing what I studied in college. I have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Virginia Tech, and I have a master's degree in systems engineering from Johns Hopkins. And so I am a systems engineer for the federal government working on the cooperative engagement capability, and instead of going in detail, you just Google it. I have a wife of almost 7 years, and I have an almost 3-year-old daughter. And when I'm not working, they take up most of my extra time, so figuring out ways to handle time and tasks, juggling a job and Intentional Academy and family life is it's fun, but it's also a labor of love, and you guys get to see it firsthand because our transparency is one of the key aspects of what the Intentional Academy is, and as we grow this community, this tribe.
Yeah.
Back to me?
Mm-hmm.
Back to you.
Back to me. Okay, so what we want to do with this show on a normal basis, right? We don't need to introduce ourselves every time.
No.
Mm-mm. What we want to do on a normal basis is a couple of things. Number one is we want to document. There's no secret here. Our mission, there's two. Okay? Number one is I believe we have a message. Every time we talk about it, we get a little bit more clear on what that message is.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to help as many people as we can. But we also believe that help will eventually yield certificates of appreciation called dollars. This is a business that we're trying to start. And so the meta level on this show is that in addition to adding value in the areas that we're directly talking about, is we're trying to document as much of the process as we can of trying to take this fuzzy, nebulous thing that started a little over a year ago in my confused and addled brain and actually turn it into a real live establishment, a real live business that does all of those things. And so we'll be talking about that as we go, as we learn how to hire our first web designer or our first time selling a product for money and dealing with taxes and making payrolls and all these things. We're going to tell you how we're doing that as just like an added level, because the truth is, I think that just about anybody that wants to has a business hiding in them, because in some room, you're the smartest person. If you can find yourself in that room, then you can help people, and they'll reward you by saying thanks. So that's kind of the big thing. What we're going to do on the show is we're going to always have some sort of a message for you. We're always going to have the majority of the show, though, is going to be answering questions from the community. Ultimately, we'd like to get the systems up and running that can be a live Q&A where we can actually discuss with you. We don't have the tech for that yet, but we will. Right now, we're answering questions that were either emailed in or left as a comment on something we've posted, either recently or in the past. So if you have a question that you'd like answered, you have lots of options, okay? You see all the links down here at the bottom. Something like that. Click them. Those are ways to communicate with us. The easiest, most personal one is probably on Twitter. I tend to have conversations there most often. But if you'd like to be private, you can always just email your questions in. Okay, right now that's at Tony@TonyFerrar.com. But even better than all of that is just to leave a comment right here on this video. And then it'll just get answered in the next session. Okay? If you happen to be live, we're going to learn how to eventually answer those as you type them in as well. Yep. That's what we've got for you.
We're expanding within our means without taking any extra debt. We're going to build this with taking on zero debt.
Right. Which is code for right now we're using the laptops, cell phones, and things that we already own,
Stuff that's free.
and we will add capability as we need it and as we're able.
Mhm.
So, cheers to that.
Yeah.
So, let's give a brief preview.
Okay.
Okay? We'll do a little rant here just to tell you one thing that I think about that I think is really relevant for this episode. We'll answer a question, and then we'll wrap up and kind of let you know where we're headed for our next show, which will be next week.
Okay.
Cool? Okay, so the rant is this. I found myself answering this question a lot lately, and that is, why do I seem to have so much confidence? It's going to sound like a weird thing. I don't like to brag. I'm not trying to come off that way. But I'm usually not nervous. I'm usually fairly confident in what I'm doing. And what it finally clicked, what I finally realized that I hadn't put words to yet, is that it's because everything I do, 99.9% of my life, I view as practice, not performance. And so here we are in this show, and even this show, you could interpret it as a performance. I'm trying to come off as amazing as I possibly can and say something so valuable that it changes your life right now as you watch this show. All these ideas, right? That would be very performance-oriented attitude towards this whole thing. Where I find myself actually going, though, is that this is practice. What I'm doing right now is I'm learning how to talk about these things. I'm learning how to do a show. You just get to watch me as I do that. And what that means is there's no way for me to fail. If this is the worst show you ever watch in your life, if you never come back, I will have learned something to make the next one better. And so I have succeeded in my goal of learning to make a better show.
Mm-hmm.
If, on the other hand, I say something that is really meaningful, and that shows up as feedback, maybe through a like or a share or a comment or, any other number of ways that you can give feedback on this, once again, that just teaches me something. It teaches us the things that matter and the things that you needed to hear, and that we said one of them. And so, I carry that attitude a lot of places. Every time I go into a classroom, most times when I sit down with a student one-on-one, when I sit down to work on a challenging problem, whether it's an engineering one or writing an article or a paper or the blog posts that tend to come out every day, all of these different things that I'm doing in my life, almost every single one of them, I've got the attitude that I'm practicing. And maybe 3 or 4 times a year, I find myself walking into a room feeling like, okay, it's game time. This is a real live performance. I can actually think of the 4 or 5 things that I've done this year where I actually felt that way. Everything else that I do, I take this attitude that there is no failure because I'm just practicing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I wanted to share as a little nugget for you today. I don't know what you guys think of that. Is this how you...
It's a really good attitude to have. I think that people make consequences bigger than they really are. If I don't do this perfectly, I'll be ostracized.
Right. And a lot of
It's not
times,
the case,
yeah, and that really
you
puts
know?
you off for starting something in the first place because it has to be perfect.
Oh gosh, yeah. I know a lot of people that have that issue, and I know I have had it at one point or another, where this isn't going to be perfect, why bother doing it at all?
Right.
And that definitely bleeds into other things, like I'm going to procrastinate because I'm not ready to make it perfect yet. And
Stare at this task
yeah,
that's so
exactly.
big,
And
and
you
it's
blank.
like,
It's like writer's block, right? I'm going to write this amazing book, but I can't start it,
right.
because
Yeah.
it's not even perfect yet.
Fear of failure causes nothing. I guess I can't fail if nothing ever is being put out, right?
Yep. Yeah, you can't fail if you don't try.
Exactly.
So,
So
yeah.
you can either fail and dwell on a negative, or you can fail and look at it as a moment of learning.
or just not think of it as failing.
Yeah. You what do you do to for that outcome not to happen next time? What do I do? Do you practice? I mean, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice.
What's that quote about, like, the 10,000 wrong ways of doing something.
Oh yeah, Edison and his light bulb.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that every one of those light bulb experiments was a time-intensive process, you know, and sitting there thinking about it, and that was his attitude, right? I found 10,000 ways it didn't work. Or
whatever it was. Yeah.
So
you learn something from every experience.
So I'll close it out with a story that has nothing to do with college.
Okay.
Where I actually stumbled on this idea and this mindset was in rock climbing. We like to rock climb. That's a thing we do. And I used to walk up to the bottom of a cliff and look up it and say, my goal is to climb to the top of this cliff without falling, without sitting on my gear. And then I've succeeded. And what would happen is I would find myself at a challenging part where I started to doubt that I was going to make it. And I would instantly become gripped with fear that I was going to fall, that would lead me to start picturing consequences that were just outrageous of what if this happens and then a squirrel comes down and chews through my rope and, you know, just ridiculous things that could have never happened. And ultimately what would happen is I'd get so nervous that I would actually fall. And somebody, you know, suggested that I had the wrong goal because my goal was to climb this route successfully instead of setting a goal that you can always win at, like learning how to rock climb better. Doesn't matter whether I make it to the top or not. My goal is to learn how to rock climb better than I did last time. And so I tried that attitude. And I just went up to a rock and I said, I'm going to learn how to climb this better than I did the last time. And I got halfway up. I started to get nervous about falling. I started thinking, oh my gosh, you're not going to make it. And instead of focusing on, well, what are you going to do about that? I started instantly to ask why I felt that way. And what I realized was that the real reason I was nervous was I was hanging off of this hand and it was getting tired. And I was getting ready to slip off because I couldn't hang anymore on this hand. But my brain didn't want to register that. It just went right to the consequence of if you fall, this is going to be terrible. And so what happened was I caught that extra step. And I learned something in that moment, which was, your arm's tired, give it a break.
Seems simple.
And so I shifted to the left a little bit. I let my arm get a break, and then I finished the route. Where before that would have just been this terrifying situation. And other times that didn't work and I fell. I took some falls this weekend. And even in those cases, I learned something. I learned a little bit about my attitude. I learned a little bit about the process I go through. And so the new attitude that I adopted was, if I make it to the top, I make it to the top. My goal is to learn how to climb better. And as soon as that becomes your goal, there's no way to fail.
Fear of failure can cloud your judgment.
Absolutely.
Something that seems that simple.
Absolutely.
You know, you don't realize it.
So let's segue.
Love segues.
That's a very abrupt way of saying, Justin, I think we had a question from the community that we were going to answer.
I like the ones you write, too. Segues.
So we had a question from Reddit. It's how to not get distracted, but how much work that I have to do. How do you not just get distracted from the sheer amount of workload that you have?
Man, I probably answer this question every day. So this isn't rehearsed or anything, but I've had this conversation a lot lately, right? It's the middle of the semester. Everybody...
Too much to do.
Everybody has too much to do, including the faculty, by the way. If you think we're all sitting on a beach right now, guess again.
Nothing to do till finals.
Yeah, right? But here's the deal. I've discovered that my brain is a terrible place to keep my to-do list. And I get distracted by what I need to do when I'm constantly trying to run through that list and make sure I don't forget anything. I got to get this done, I got to get that done, I got to get this done, and then I got this test, and then I've got that homework assignment.
Don't forget
and
that.
It's just cycling, and it's eating up energy in my brain.
Yep.
And so, as stupid as this sounds, I grabbed a piece of white paper and I just wrote everything down. And of course, I don't have mine with me because I'm not at the office. But if I were at the office, I'd be able to reach right next to me and pick up a single piece of white paper that has everything I need to accomplish on it this week. It's all there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's maybe not the most life-changing bit of information to share here on our first show. But the bottom line is I actually make that list. And when I make it, I empty my brain of every single thing that has my attention. So that if something creeps back in, I can say, oh, don't worry about it. It's written down. And I trust that I will read that sheet and I will get to it when it matters.
Or if something pops up, you can put it on you can put it on the sheet.
Right.
Instead of immediately letting it distract you.
Right. So, that's kind of my way of handling this, is just to actually get it all written down. But the other thing that I've noticed is that time management is really personal. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you guys have a little bit different strategies. I know you have an amazing memory compared to me. I can watch a TV show that I've seen 3 times and be surprised by the ending.
It's so frustrating.
But I don't know. What do you guys think?
Writing down is key. And writing down for me gives freedom, to trust that everything is taken care of, It sounds silly, but even with just groceries, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to make groceries. I was going to say the same thing. And I know when I go to the store and I get everything on this list, I'm not forgetting anything that I needed. And I have the freedom to not think about that anymore. And, when I was in college, something that was really important for me was writing down the due dates for everything, not just, I know you do everything by the day, what's your task for the day. And I sort of did that along with due dates so I could break up my work. It's like, okay, I have to work 2 hours on this at least, today, and at least 10 hours by the end of the week. Otherwise, there's no way I'm going to be able to get this done by the time it's due. And so I think that people tend to procrastinate and say, oh, I have it written down. That's my due date. So I don't have to worry about it until then. And then you're cramming till 11 o'clock at night and you're like, oh my goodness. But having that due date and then sort of going backwards from what I needed to get done was really important to make sure I had the time for everything that, needed to get done. So writing down for sure. And then kind of organizing it in a way that makes the most sense to you, because that was important for me in the way my brain worked. Mm-hmm.
I think one other thing that really helps me, and some people don't live this way, but routine is very key in me keeping myself straight. Even in college, I attempted to do all of my classes between 8 and noon if I could, and then treat the rest of the day as a regular work day, and get my homework done, get my tasks done, so I didn't have to do all-nighters, or I didn't have to do late nights, and I could have dinner and sort of de-stress. And that even to this day, I like to get up at the same time when I'm getting prepared in the morning with my wife and my daughter. We try to do things in the same, because as soon as we get distracted, I'll leave my work laptop at home, or I'll forget to make my coffee, and then we have to pick that up. So having a list, having it prioritized, understanding how much time you have is great, but routine for me really helps me stay focused, because I know this is what I do. Now I'm driving to work, now I get to work and I check email first, things like that. So
well, and that leaves free space in your brain not to think about, did I get my laptop, or where's my charger, if it's in the same place every single time, if you get your coffee at the same time or what have you, there's that freedom because oh, well, that's where that is, and that's when I pick it up, and you don't have to think about it.
Yeah, man, that's really helpful. I actually tell my students that my goal is to not make a decision before I sit down at my desk every day at work, which means I've been awake for almost 3 hours and I haven't made a decision that I didn't make previously. All routine. I don't really think about what I'm going to have for breakfast. I don't really think about what I need to pack to walk out the door, because everything goes in the same place every time.
Exactly. My coffee is made the night before. Overnight oats are made the night before. I just grab and go.
And I think that's the stuff that flow is made out of.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, I'm not thinking about that. But what I am thinking about is what I'm going to say on my morning video while I eat my Cheerios, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, as we wrap this up, how many companies have we mentioned today? We've got Google, we mentioned Mac, Cheerios.
Reddit.
Nice.
Yeah, that'll be $100. Watch. So,
Virginia Tech was mentioned.
oh, hey, yeah.
One,
Johns
two
Hopkins.
times.
Each.
Hey, they're getting plenty of our money still, so.
Give some of that back.
Right.
Invest in the Intentional
Wow.
Academy.
Actually,
All right, so
at the end of November, I will not owe any more student loans.
Woohoo!
jump on it, man. Can't wait to celebrate that with you.
That'll be
We'll
exciting.
be a few months behind you, but not many.
Close.
All right, let's wrap this up. Let me just tell you this. Thank you for tuning in. Next time we run the show, we're going to launch into the rants and a lot more community questions. And so the number one thing that you can do if you'd like to be a part of this is ask a question, whether that's via any of our social media, drop a comment here, shoot me an email, tony@tonyferrar.com. Pretty easy to find. We would love to hear from you, and we would love to help. If we said something here that you didn't quite understand, ask us.
Yeah.
We'll clarify. We will make a call for you or a video just for you, whatever it is you need. We're going to get there. We're going to figure out how to have these conversations effectively and get you what you need.
We'll also accept any of your own tips, to
Absolutely.
share with other people, since we're not able to go live with other people on the show yet.
So
So
leave a comment on this video on the Facebook page. Once this gets uploaded to YouTube, you can comment there. Any
Yeah,
of the
this
social
is-
media.
when I had my son, I was grabbing every community possible to get advice, and
Yes.
what do I do? This person depends on me now. So we're here for you.
All right.
It takes a village.
Well,
Oh yeah.
there we go, right? So, thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. I declare Intentional Academy Live, Episode 1, completed. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.